The courtroom went silent the moment she walked in, heels clicking like she owned the world. The sound of her heels echoed like warnings on the polished floor. One click, then another, and another. Every step felt like she was announcing something. I am here. I am powerful. I am above everyone. People sitting in the courtroom turned their heads slowly. Some whispered. Some frowned. Some held their breath, waiting to see what drama this girl would bring today. But Emily Carter didn't look at a single person. She didn't care. She walked like she had already won, like the room existed only because she allowed it to. Emily wasn't scared. She wasn't ashamed. She wasn't nervous. She was annoyed. Annoyed that she had to leave her morning spa appointment. Annoyed that the judge dared to summon her. Annoyed that she had to sit in a room with people she believed were beneath her. Her shiny designer bag swung at her side. Her perfume filled the room. Her hair looked like she stepped straight out of a fashion magazine. Her clothes cost more than the monthly salary of most people sitting there. But none of that impressed anyone, because everyone knew exactly why she was here, and everyone knew exactly who she had hurt. As Emily took her seat, she crossed her legs slowly, leaned back, and shot the judge a lazy smile like she had just walked into a boring lecture. But today wasn't boring. Today wasn't normal. Today was justice. Judge Harris, a calm but deeply observant man, adjusted his glasses and stared at Emily. He had been a judge for over 25 years, and in those years he had seen thieves, liars, abusers, scammers, and arrogant people who thought money made them untouchable. But Emily, something about her arrogance felt different. Sharp, cold, empty. He had seen cruelty before, but rarely from someone so young. Emily Carter, the judge finally spoke, his voice echoing in the quiet room. Do you understand why you're here today? Emily made a dramatic sigh, tapping her manicured nails on the wooden table. Yes, some homeless guy cried because of me, she said, waving her hand like she was brushing dust off her shoulder. Can we hurry up? I have lunch plans. A collective gasp spread across the room like a wave. One woman whispered, "How could someone be this heartless?" Another man shook his head, whispering, "This girl needs a reality check." But Emily didn't care. She leaned back even more, smiling like she was proud of what she had said. Judge Harris stared at her for a long moment. His eyes were filled not with anger, but disappointment. Deep, painful disappointment. "Emily," he said slowly, "do you understand that this is not a joke?" Emily shrugged. Everything is a joke if it's boring enough. Her voice dripped with arrogance. The judge turned his head slightly and looked toward the corner of the courtroom. His eyes softened. "Mr. Parker," he said gently, "please come forward." The room grew even quieter, almost painfully quiet. A frail old man slowly stood up. His clothes were old and faded. His shoes were torn at the edges. His hands trembled lightly as he held a small, worn-out book. His steps were slow and careful, like each movement hurt. But despite all this, there was something unbroken in his eyes, something deep, something kind. This was Mr. Parker, a former school teacher, a husband, a man who once lived a peaceful life with dreams, love, and security. A man who lost everything, not because he was careless, but because life had been unusually cruel. Yet even in all this suffering, he never lost his humanity. Emily, however, didn't even look at him, not even once. She stared at her nails instead, bored. Mr. Parker reached the front and took a slow breath before speaking. I was sitting on the sidewalk that morning," he said softly. "I have my books with me. They're the only things I have left from my teaching days." He gently touched the old book in his hands. It was torn on the edges, but he held it like it was treasure. "I read the same books every day. It reminds me of my students of my old life." He swallowed, his voice trembling. Then I heard laughter, loud and sharp. Emily smirked and whispered under her breath, "Oh, please." It wasn't that loud. Judge Harris glared at her. "Not another word," he warned. Emily rolled her eyes and looked away. Mr. Parker continued. "I looked up and she was standing there, recording me, laughing, calling me names." Some people in the courtroom shook their heads in disbelief. "She told me I looked like trash. That people like me make the city look dirty. She kicked my books." His voice broke slightly at that line. A soft gasp spread around the room again. Emily sighed dramatically. It's just a book. You could buy another one for like $2. Mr. Parker closed his eyes for a moment, gathering strength. That book, he whispered, was a gift from my wife. The last thing she ever gave me before she passed. For the first time, a wave of silence hit even Emily's face, but only for 1 second. Then she shrugged. It's still just a book. The courtroom felt the cruelty in her words, the coldness, the emptiness. Judge Harris leaned forward. Emily, he said, voice rougher now, do you realize the pain you caused this man? Emily tilted her head and said, he's homeless. He shouldn't be sitting in the middle of the city anyway. I just told him the truth. Her words sliced through the air like knives. Mr. Parker didn't cry. He didn't shout. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. Not tired from life. Tired for being treated like he was less than human. Judge Harris took a deep breath. Emily Carter, he said slowly, do you believe that people without money are worth less than you? Emily smiled confidently. Of course. That's just how the world works. I mean, look at him. He's nothing. Her words dropped into the room like a bomb. People gasped again. One woman covered her mouth. A man whispered, Lord help her. But Emily looked proud of what she said. Judge Harris stood up. His voice changed, stronger, deeper, full of authority. Enough. Emily stiffened, surprised. It was the first time in her life someone dared to speak to her that way. Judge Harris continued, young lady, I have seen arrogance before, but never this heartless, never this cold. Emily looked offended. Whatever. Just give me a fine. My dad will pay. The judge shook his head slowly. There will be no fine today. Emily smirked. Good. The judge leaned forward, his voice sharp as steel. Because you're getting something much harder. Emily's smile vanished. You, Emily Carter, will spend 100 hours serving at a homeless shelter. Emily's eyes widened. What? No, absolutely not. That's disgusting. You will cook. You will clean. You will serve food. You will sit and listen to their stories. Emily slammed her hands on the table. You can't do that to me. I'm rich. Judge Harris stared in her eyes and said, and that is exactly why you need this. The room erupted into soft claps. Not loud applause, but approval. Real approval. Emily felt something she had never felt before. She felt small. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what to say. She just sat there, silent, shaken, confused. Here, her money meant nothing. Her beauty meant nothing. Her attitude meant nothing. Only justice mattered. Only truth mattered. And today, justice had finally come. The courtroom doors closed behind Emily with a heavy thud as the session ended, but something felt different. For the first time, she wasn't walking out with victory in her eyes. She wasn't flipping her hair with confidence. She wasn't smiling her usual arrogant smile. She walked out stiff, silent. Her heels didn't click proudly anymore. They sounded more like echoes of confusion, and something she had never known. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited like hungry wolves, their cameras ready to flash, microphones ready to attack with questions. This kind of scandal was rare. A rich girl humiliating a homeless elder, punished by a judge with moral fire. As soon as Emily stepped out, the reporters exploded. Emily, do you think you deserve the punishment? Why did you insult Mr. Parker? Do you regret your actions? What will your father say about this judgment? Emily covered her face with her bag and pushed through the crowd. Move! Get away from me, she shouted. Her voice cracked, not from fear, but from frustration. She wasn't used to being questioned. She wasn't used to being criticized. She was used to being praised, adored, obeyed. Today was different. She finally made it to her father's expensive black car. The driver quickly opened the door, and she practically jumped inside like she was escaping a fire. Her father, Richard Carter, a strict businessman with a cold stare, sat waiting for her. His jaw was tight. His eyes were burning with anger. Emily. His voice was sharp. She swallowed. She hated when he used that tone. What? She muttered. He glared at her. We are all over the news. My colleagues called me. Investors called me. And do you know why? Emily looked out the window. Emily looked out the window. No, because my daughter, my only daughter, became the symbol of cruelty today. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please, Dad, it's not that serious. It's just some poor old... Stop. His voice thundered through the car. Emily froze. You will not speak about him like that again. Emily looked at him, shocked. Her father had never raised his voice at her. Never. He always gave her whatever she wanted. He always defended her. He always blamed others. But not today. You embarrass this family, he said. You embarrass me. And you embarrass yourself. Emily hated the sting in his words. It's not my fault. He was in the way. I was making a video and... Her father slammed his hand against the seat. You humiliated a homeless elder, he said. And now you expect sympathy? Emily's eyes filled with frustration tears. Not sadness, not guilt, just anger that she wasn't being supported. This is unfair, she muttered. No, Emily, her father said quietly. What the judge did was justice. Emily whipped her head toward him. You're taking his side? Her father nodded. The judge was right. You need this punishment. Emily's jaw dropped. I'm not doing any stupid shelter work. That's not my place. I'm not built for that. I have a life. You will do it, her father said sternly. Because if you don't, I will cut your card. Emily's blood froze. What? Her father leaned closer. You live on my money. You are my money. You eat my money. You drive my money. And if you refuse this punishment, that stops. Her heart sank. For Emily, money wasn't support. Money was her identity, her shield, her power. Without money, she had nothing. You're not serious, she whispered. He didn't blink. I am. Emily looked out the window again, jaw clenched. She hated everyone today. The judge, the reporters, her father, that homeless man, the whole world. They all wanted her to learn a lesson. She didn't want lessons. She wanted control. Emily stood outside the homeless shelter like a princess standing in mud. Her arms crossed tightly, her face full of disgust. Her nose wrinkled at the smell of cooking food mixed with old wood and cleaning products. The sign above the door read, Hope Haven Community Shelter. People walked in and out, some with tired eyes, some with hopeful smiles, some with stories written on their faces. Emily hated being here. I can't believe I'm doing this, she muttered. A woman stepped out from the entrance. She was in her mid-40s, wearing an apron, sleeves rolled up. Her eyes were warm but sharp, like someone kind but not easily fooled. She approached Emily with a gentle smile. You must be Emily Carter. Emily scoffed. Unfortunately. The woman nodded politely. I'm Ms. Lopez. I run the shelter. Emily looked her up and down. You're in charge? Seriously? Ms. Lopez didn't react to the insult. Yes, and for the next few hours, you'll be working here with us. Emily groaned loudly. This is so stupid. Can I just sign something and leave? Ms. Lopez smiled calmly. No, you have to serve. Emily rolled her eyes again. Fine. What do you want me to do? Clean toilets? Scrub floors? Cook? I'm not doing anything gross. Ms. Lopez didn't argue. She simply pointed to a long table where people were eating. You'll start by serving food. Emily frowned. Like a cafeteria worker? Yes, Ms. Lopez replied. Emily muttered curse words under her breath. Ms. Lopez handed her an apron. Emily stared at it with pure horror. I'm not wearing that. Ms. Lopez smiled. Then you are not working. Emily clenched her jaw so hard she felt pain in her teeth. But with her father's words echoing in her mind, I will cut your card. She snatched the apron and tied it angrily. As she walked to the serving station, people looked at her. Some smiled kindly. Some seemed confused. Some didn't pay attention at all. And that irritated her even more. She expected people to whisper, stare, admire, envy. But here, she was just another person. She didn't stand out. She wasn't special. She was just a worker behind table. It made her furious. Ms. Lopez stood beside her and opened the serving pots. Start with the soup, Ms. Lopez instructed. Emily picked up the spoon. It felt too heavy for her. People approached with trays. One by one, she served. Slowly, carelessly, unhappily. But then, a familiar voice. Thank you, young lady. Emily froze. She slowly looked up. It was Mr. Parker, the same man she insulted, the same man she called trash, the same man whose book she kicked. He stood there, old, fragile, yet gentle. Emily's jaw clenched when their eyes met. Are you serious? She muttered. You again? Ms. Lopez gave her a warning look. Emily, she said softly. But Emily ignored her. Mr. Parker didn't react to the insult. He simply held his tray and waited. Emily dropped soup in his bowl, so hard that some spilled. Oops, she said coldly. Mr. Parker gave a small smile. It's all right, he whispered. Emily hated that smile. It wasn't angry. It wasn't vengeful. It wasn't bitter. It was understanding, and that made her feel something she didn't like. Ms. Lopez approached with a firmer tone. Emily, apologize. Emily's head snapped toward her. For what? He doesn't care. Ms. Lopez's eyes narrowed. Apologize. Emily could feel eyes watching her. People waiting. This was humiliating. She whispered through clenched teeth. Sorry. Mr. Parker gave a gentle nod. Thank you, he said softly. I accept your apology. Emily turned away, embarrassed and angry. She didn't expect him to forgive her. She didn't expect him to be calm. She expected him to yell, to complain, to hate her. But he didn't. And that made her even more uncomfortable. Mr. Parker walked away with his food. But something strange happened inside Emily's chest. A tiny, tiny sting. Not guilt. Not yet. Just discomfort. Like a crack forming in a stone. A crack she didn't want. A crack she didn't like. A crack that scared her. Because if that crack grew, she might start to feel something she had never felt before. Humanity. Emily stood in the middle of the crowded homeless shelter, frozen like a statue, watching people rush past her. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the richest person in the room. She wasn't the center of attention. No one cared about her brands. No one cared about her makeup. No one cared about her attitude. And that, more than anything, made her uncomfortable. She held a tray of food, her hands trembling slightly. The smell of soup, old blankets, cleaning chemicals, and tired people filled the air. This wasn't the world she knew. This wasn't her mansion. This wasn't her warm, shiny, perfect life. A woman with tired eyes tapped Emily's shoulder. Sweetheart, can you hand me a bowl? My son hasn't eaten since yesterday. Emily blinked. She never expected someone to call her sweetheart. Usually people called her ma'am, rich girl, or spoiled brat. No one spoke to her with softness. Why, yeah, she whispered, handing the bowl. Her voice sounded small, weaker than she imagined. The boy who took the bowl looked around 7, his cheeks sunken, eyes filled with a hunger Emily had never witnessed. He whispered, thank you, like it was the biggest gift he ever received. Emily swallowed hard. Why did those 2 words hit her so deeply? People thanked her all the time, but for money, not for kindness. She turned away quickly, pretending she didn't feel anything, but something inside her was shifting. Something heavy. Something she didn't want to face. Why, E.T. As Emily picked up another tray, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Careful with that tray, the voice said gently. She froze. Her eyes widened. Her throat tightened. She knew that voice. Slowly, she turned around. It was Mr. Parker, the very man she had insulted, the man she called trash, the man she shoved, the man she humiliated for views. He stood with the same humble posture, but this time his eyes carried something else. Not anger, not revenge, not bitterness. Pain? No, something deeper. Understanding. Emily's heart began to race. W, what are you doing here? She whispered. He smiled softly. I volunteer here. Her jaw dropped. You volunteer? Here. Yes, he replied. These people are like family to me. I lost my home, but I didn't lose my purpose. Emily felt her stomach twist. Purpose. Such a big word. Such a heavy word. Such a word she never truly understood. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, Mr. Parker gently took the tray from her shaking hands. You don't need to carry everything alone, he said. The line hit her straight in the heart. Not because he said it, but because he meant it. Emily tried to take a deep breath. She tried to form the words she never used in her life. I'm sorry, she whispered so quietly it almost disappeared. For a moment, the room faded into silence. Mr. Parker looked at her with gentle, steady eyes. You don't need to apologize, he said kindly. But I should, she insisted, her voice cracking. What I did was horrible. Mr. Parker smiled. You were lost. Losing your way doesn't make you a bad person. Staying lost does. Emily felt tears threaten the corner of her eyes. Not because he was forgiving her, but because he was kinder than she had ever been. Her mother never taught her kindness. Her father taught her money. Her friends taught her status. Social media taught her attention. But this broken old man, he was teaching her humanity. Something inside her cracked a little more. The shift inside her grew stronger when a nurse approached. "Emily, can you help wash the dishes?" Emily nodded silently, following her to the worn-down kitchen. Stacks of plates, dirty utensils, buckets of soap, old sponges. This wasn't her world. But as she washed the dishes, she listened to the people around her. Two elderly women talked about how they used to be nurses. A young girl giggled about how she dreamed of being a dancer. A man described how he lost his job and then his home. Another explained how one hospital bill destroyed everything. All these people had stories. All these people had dreams. All these people had pain. And Emily realized she had never asked anyone's story in her entire life. She only judged from the outside. She only mocked what she didn't understand. She only saw poverty as something embarrassing, not something tragic. Her chest tightened. How many people had she hurt just because she didn't know better? How many smiles had she wiped out with her cruel words? How many hearts had she broken? How many times had she laughed at someone's struggle? The shame grew heavier. Her breathing grew uneven. She put down the dish. Her eyes blurred. Her hands trembled. "Are you okay?" the nurse asked. Emily nodded, but she wasn't okay. Not even close. Emily stepped outside for air. Cold wind brushed her face. Her heart hammered. Tears she fought so hard to hide finally escaped. She slid down against the wall and buried her face in her hands. For years, she pretended to be strong. For years, she pretended to be perfect. For years, she pretended to not care. For years, she pretended that money made her superior. But now, she felt small. She felt guilty. She felt lost. She whispered, "What have I been doing with my life?" Her voice cracked. Her breath trembled. And that's when she heard footsteps. She looked up, and it was Judge Harris. He wasn't angry. He wasn't stern. He wasn't disappointed. He simply looked at her like a father whose child finally understood a difficult truth. "You're learning," he said softly. Emily wiped her tears. I don't know who I am anymore." Judge Harris sat beside her. "You're someone who finally opened her eyes." Emily sniffled. "I hurt him. I hurt so many people. I thought money made me better, but it made me blind." The judge nodded. "Arrogance is not knowing you're wrong. Growth is realizing it." Emily whispered, "Why was Mr. Parker so kind to me? I don't deserve it." Judge Harris replied, "That's the greatest kindness, to forgive someone who believes they are unforgivable." Those words hit her like a tidal wave. Forgive someone who believes they are unforgivable. Emily broke down completely, not from weakness, but from awakening. For the first time, she wasn't crying because she didn't get something she wanted. She wasn't crying because she felt insulted. She wasn't crying because she lost her status. She was crying because she finally saw herself clearly. And it hurt. It hurt deeply, but it was necessary. After a long silence, Emily stood up. "What do I do now?" she asked. Judge Harris placed a hand on her shoulder. "You start by helping, not because the court ordered you, but because your heart needs to." Emily wiped her tears and nodded. "No more excuses. No more pride. I want to change, really change." The judge smiled. "That's the beginning of your real punishment and your real freedom." Emily felt something new, something she didn't recognize. Purpose. She walked back inside. Her steps were softer. Her eyes were clearer. Her heart was heavier, but honest. Mr. Parker saw her return and gave a small nod. A nod that said, "You're trying, and that's enough for now." Emily smiled weakly. Tomorrow, she would help more. Tomorrow, she would listen more. Tomorrow, she would care more. But today, she took her first real step. The step from privileged ignorance to human understanding. And that step changed everything. The next morning, Emily arrived at the homeless shelter before anyone else. No makeup, no designer clothes, no expensive perfume. Just a simple hoodie, tied back hair, and tired eyes that had cried all night. She looked around the quiet shelter. Empty tables, cold floor, a few blankets still folded neatly. It felt strange being the first one there. Usually, she arrived last to everything. Parties, classes, meetings. She liked attention. She liked entrance. But here, she didn't need an entrance. She needed purpose. She needed healing. With a deep breath, she walked toward the kitchen. Ready to work, she washed vegetables. She wiped tables. She packed bread. She cleaned the entire room before sunrise. Not because someone told her to, but because something inside her had changed. Her heart felt heavier, but her mind felt clear. And for the first time in her life, she didn't care if she smelled like onions or cleaning soap. She just wanted to help. Suddenly, she heard the shelter door open. She turned and froze. It was Mr. Parker. The old man paused, surprised to see her so early. "Well," he said with a warm smile, "someone's working hard today." Emily rubbed the back of her neck shyly. I woke up early," she mumbled. He chuckled softly. "Most people wake up early to avoid trouble. You woke up early to face it." Emily's cheeks warmed. Mr. Parker's kindness felt like sunlight on a cold day, soft, steady, and healing. As people entered the shelter one by one, Emily noticed something she had never paid attention to before. Every face here carried a story. A woman with shaking hands who used to be a chef. A teenage boy who lost his home after his dad passed away. An elderly man who could barely walk, but still smiled at everyone. Emily felt something pull at her heart. She approached a young mother feeding her baby with a bottle half filled with watered milk. Is everything okay?" Emily asked softly. The mother smiled weakly. "It's all we have today, but we're grateful." Emily's throat tightened. People lived like this? People suffered like this? She pulled out a fresh milk carton, shook it, and offered it to the mother. The woman's eyes filled with tears instantly. "You have no idea how much this means." That was the moment. The moment Emily finally understood what true value was. Not money, not designer fashion, not status, not power. Value is seeing a stranger smile because of your kindness. Value is caring for someone without expecting anything back. Value was humanity. Later that afternoon, as Emily carried boxes of blankets, she overheard a group of men talking about life on the streets. "I sleep under the bridge," one said. "The cold almost killed me last winter," another added. "I haven't spoken to my family in years," said the third. Emily froze. She felt as if her heart had been punched. She had never slept a night without her soft mattress. She had never felt the fear of hunger. She had never experienced cold that turned skin numb. She didn't know the world could be this cruel. She didn't know people could be this strong. She didn't know suffering could make someone so gentle. Her eyes watered again, but this time she didn't hide it. Mr. Parker walked up beside her. "You're thinking a lot," he said. Emily swallowed hard. "I didn't know people lived like this. I didn't know life could be so unfair." He nodded slowly. "Life is unfair, but kindness makes it bearable." Emily looked at him. "You lost everything, and you still give so much." "How?" Mr. Parker's eyes softened. "When you lose material things, you learn what truly matters. I lost my house, but I didn't lose my humanity." Emily's chest ached. She had everything, and yet she felt empty. This man had nothing, and yet he gave everything. How? Why? What made him so strong? A quiet voice inside her whispered, "Because he knows pain." You never did. Later that day, as the shelter calmed down after lunch, Emily approached Mr. Parker. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said timidly. He nodded gently. "Of course." She hesitated. "What really happened to you? How did you lose your home?" Mr. Parker sighed, but not in anger. He sighed like someone remembering a wound that still hurt. "My wife got sick," he began. "A rare disease. Treatment was expensive. I used all my savings. Sold my furniture. Sold my car. And then sold my home." Emily's breath hitched. But why didn't anyone help you?" He smiled sadly. "I didn't want pity. I wanted time with her. And I got it, but I lost everything else." Emily felt tears sting her eyes. His love cost him his life. His empathy cost him his stability. His kindness cost him his comfort. He wasn't weak. He was strong in a way Emily never understood. "Is that why you're homeless?" she whispered. Yes, he replied softly. But I don't regret it. She was my life. I would do it again. Emily's heart cracked open completely. This man had sacrificed everything for love. And she had insulted him, mocked him, laughed at him, for views. Shame washed over her. I'm so sorry, she whispered again, voice shaking. Mr. Parker touched her shoulder lightly. You didn't know my story. Now you do. And that makes all the difference. Emily cried. She didn't care who saw. She didn't care if her face turned red. She didn't care if her voice broke. She cried because her soul was changing. She cried because she finally understood what kindness meant. She cried because she finally saw herself clearly and didn't like the reflection. That evening, the shelter began to close. People left with food packets and warm blankets. The rooms slowly emptied. Emily stayed behind, stacking chairs and cleaning tables. Mr. Parker approached her again. You've done well today. Emily shook her head. No, I've done nothing compared to what you do, compared to what these people go through. But you started, he said. And starting is the hardest part. Emily looked down at her hands. Hands that used to hold shopping bags and expensive phones, now holding scrub brushes and cleaning rags. Hands that used to point at people, now helping them. Hands that once hurt, now healing. She made a quiet, trembling promise. I want to help, not just because the judge told me to. I want to help because it feels right. Mr. Parker smiled proudly. That's the change I was waiting for. Emily wiped her eyes. No more videos making fun of people. No more arrogance. No more insults. I want to be someone better. He nodded. You already are. Emily inhaled deeply. Tomorrow, she would return again. And the next day, and next. Not because of punishment, but because of purpose. When Emily stepped outside, she found Judge Harris leaning against his car, watching her. You stayed late, he said. Emily nodded. I wanted to help more. He studied her face carefully. You look different. I feel different, she whispered. Judge Harris smiled warmly. Justice is not just about punishment. It's about transformation. And you, Emily, are transforming. She blinked back tears. Do you think I can ever make things right? Judge Harris placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You can't undo your past, but you can choose who you become. Emily exhaled shakily. I choose kindness. And for the first time ever, she didn't just say it. She meant it. The sun rose slowly over the city, painting the streets in shades of gold and orange. Emily woke up earlier than usual. Not because she had to, not because anyone told her, but because something inside her demanded it. Something stronger than fear, stronger than money, stronger than pride. It was responsibility. It was humanity. It was the voice of truth she could no longer ignore. She dressed simply. Hoodie, jeans, sneakers. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, nothing that screamed attention. And for the first time in her life, she felt free. Emily arrived at the shelter before the doors opened. She carried bags of groceries, bread, and fresh fruit she had bought herself. Not because her father told her to, not because the judge required it, but because she wanted to. She set up tables, organized the food, cleaned the floor, wiped every surface until it gleamed. She moved with a purpose she had never known. Her movements were no longer lazy, no longer careless. They were deliberate, meaningful. Mr. Parker arrived shortly after, smiling at her energy. Emily, you're different today, he said. Emily smiled softly. I feel different. I can't explain it, but I just feel like I belong here. As people came into the shelter, Emily greeted each one by name. She remembered stories. She asked questions. She listened. She heard a young man recount how he had been fired unfairly. She listened to an elderly woman share her struggle with illness. She watched a small boy laugh as she served him hot soup. Every smile, every grateful glance, every whispered thank you struck Emily deeper than any luxury she had ever known. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about social media fame. It was about making a real difference. And with every act of kindness, Emily felt her heart grow lighter. The weight of her past arrogance, cruelty, and ignorance began to lift. Midday arrived. Emily took a break and stepped outside for air. The city was bustling, cars honking, People rushing, advertisements flashing, social media scrolling, noise everywhere. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her old videos, her old posts, her mocking laughter, the way she ridiculed people for views. Her stomach turned. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. I caused real pain for entertainment. I laughed at others' suffering. I made them feel worthless, and I thought I was above it all. Tears filled her eyes. She felt shame like she never knew existed. And yet, within that shame, there was clarity. She could choose to be different. She could choose to change. She could choose to help, not hurt. And she did. Afternoon came, and the shelter was full again. Emily served meals. She helped organize donations. She even started a small story circle where people shared their experiences, their dreams, and their challenges. Something magical happened. People started to open up. Children laughed more. Adults smiled. Hope filled the room. Mr. Parker watched quietly from the corner. He whispered to Emily, "You see, one act of kindness can change everything. One heart can touch another, and it spreads." Emily smiled, understanding now what he meant. It wasn't about money or power. It was about love, empathy, and humanity. Later that evening, a reporter who had followed Emily since the courtroom incident approached her. "Emily, can we get a comment?" She nodded. I just want to help. That's it. No fame. No money. Just help." The reporter filmed her working with the shelter, capturing her genuine smile, her sincerity, and her kindness. By the next morning, the video went viral. Not because Emily was rich or famous, but because she had changed. Millions watched. Millions shared. Millions commented. Comments poured in. She's finally learning the true value of life. What a transformation! Riches don't define you. Kindness does. Emily realized then, true influence comes not from wealth, but from heart. Days passed. Weeks passed. Emily continued her volunteer work. She no longer cared about social media views, luxury brands, or attention. Her happiness came from serving, listening, and connecting with people. She learned lessons that no school, no luxury, and no influencer could ever teach. Empathy is priceless. Kindness multiplies. Pain teaches more than privilege ever can. True wealth is in giving, not taking. Even her father noticed the change. "Emily," he said one evening, "I'm proud of the person you're becoming." Emily smiled softly, understanding that growth was the ultimate luxury. If Emily's story touched your heart and showed the power of kindness over cruelty, hit the like button, share this video with everyone you know, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that inspire and transform lives. Comment below your thoughts. How would you act if faced with someone like Emily? Let's make kindness go viral. Red heart, hashtag humanity wins, hashtag kindness over cruelty, hashtag viral stories, hashtag changemakers, hashtag inspiring stories. Emily Carter walked out of the shelter that evening. She didn't check her phone. She didn't worry about fame. She didn't care about wealth. She looked at the sunset, a warm smile on her face. For the first time in her life, she felt truly alive. She had learned what money could never teach. She had experienced what privilege could never buy. She had finally discovered the power of humanity, empathy, and kindness. And as she walked down the empty street, she whispered softly to herself, "I'm not perfect, but I'm finally human."